We acknowledge the traditional owners of country throughout Australia and recognise their continuing connection to land, waters and culture. We pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging. This is Cheryl from Dja country. Welcome everyone, my name's Cheryl Downs and welcome to another Beyond 90 podcast. I have a couple of guests with me, or co-hosts, we may as well call them. We have Dale Roots with us tonight and we have Maz Pacheco as well. Eric's taking some extra work hours, I think, or maybe just standard work hours, and Steffen will join us later for his regular Nordic wrap. But welcome to Freedom, Dale. How are you doing?
I'm just glad to be here. Glad to still be here. That's, I think, the most important thing. We've made it to the end of the tunnel. And the light is, well, it's quite grey outside, so it's not quite, I might go back into the tunnel. But yeah, I've got, as I said to you guys off mic, I've got some mates that went to the pub at midnight last night to get that fresh beverage in, and there were people lined up at Kmart at midnight to go and get their, blankets and utensils and stuff. But yeah, it's, well, I'm glad to still be here. That's the most important thing. And thank you to you guys for keeping me sane, well, relatively sane through lockdown.
Oh, nothing wrong with talking a bit of football to keep us sane.
Exactly.
Madge, how sane are you right now? Are you, ticking the boxes?
I'm absolutely peachy, so I've got nothing to complain about, except that, of course, summer's decided to come. We get cold, then we're immediately hot. So we're already in the 30s. So that's my worst complaint at the moment.
We should be very thankful as well for Madge to join the podcast yet again. It wasn't enough to scare her off last week, and we're very happy to have your thoughts here as we kick off another podcast. And it's been a big week in football. When I say it's been a big week, I don't always mean that it's been a good week. Some serious allegations have been made this week, and it is a really challenging situation. Lisa de Vanna has been applauded for her courage in coming out to talk about the historic abuses that she's faced in her career. Riley Dobson as well, who is a very special person to us on the podcast, has talked about her experiences too. There is a lot to unpack there. It's an incredibly complex situation and issue. I don't feel that I'm qualified to talk about it, and I don't mean by any stretch that the allegations have any lack of fact in them. It's more that what are the systems and what are the processes that are there to support the players under these circumstances? What is the history? Where is it going from here? So as we know, Football Australia has made a statement on the situation, as have the PFA. The Matildas just today have released their own statement about the situation as well. There may or may not be more news coming out. My only insight, or I'm not sure that it's insight in me saying how complex it is, I think when we read different news outlets and the spin that they put on it, it can dilute from the truth of the facts of what the players have been through. So I don't want to contribute to that in any which way. I leave you all to make your own informed opinions. We will include a link to all of those statements, plus a link to Tracey Holmes on the ticket. She had a very well-rounded conversation about the situation. And I think if anyone needs a bit more info, I'd certainly recommend that they go off and have a look at that. Bearing that in mind, Dale and Madge, did you want to say anything about the issue, or did you want to leave it as gentle as I've touched on it?
Madge, you can start us off.
Look, I just think respect. We just need respect for people in situations like this, just generally, and I think as fans we expect that our players and the staff can work in safe and respectful environments. And anything that the FA can do to ensure that those environments are safe, accepting and inclusive places into the future has my full support.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think that, as you say, this is about a safe workplace environment, as much as we like to think of athletes as that they have the best job in the world, and they get to do what they love. At the end of the day, this is their workplace. And if there's anything that we can do and FA can do to make that workplace safer and more inclusive for all players at all levels, really, not just in the women's game, but in the men's game as well. But as we say, obviously these allegations are stuff that we kind of cover here, then I'm all for that. I think that there has to be not necessarily just respect for these people that have come forward, these women that have come forward and made these allegations, not just by us as kind of fans, but also the way that they're reported in the media. I know that there was a lot of conversation on that specific part in Tracey Holmes's ticket article, episode rather, which I thought was fantastic. Another fantastic episode from her. She's one of my favorite sports journalists. But yeah, I think that the way that we look at ourselves as a code and also kind of as a broader sporting society is important going forward, just as we say, to keep these players safe and to keep the sport safe as a whole.
Thank you both very much for that. I think it's important to talk about it and not just sweep it under the mat or under the rug, so to speak. But it's also, like I said, I'm not qualified to talk about the different levels that go into there. The other thing that you can have a look at if you want to is, I'll try and find a link to Moya was part of a Pride conference that was just a couple of days ago last week, and she had some very important points in there as well, just about everything has been thrown into one bucket, and that bucket almost needs to be separated to say, yes, we need a safe and inclusive environment for the players, the staff. We need a process to deal with grievances and complaints, and we also need to have an understanding of the words that are used in some of these areas as well. But I won't say anything other than that, but I appreciate everyone listening in to us as we touch on that very delicately. Moving on
just on that, just before we go on, thank you to whoever was reporting on that for putting that out as far away from a podcast as possible. So I think we recorded on the Monday evening and then the story came out on the Tuesday morning. So thank you for giving us a full 7 days to cut our heads around this. I know timing is crucial when it comes to these things. So I'm glad that we could, as you say, touch on this with a little bit of sensitivity instead of kind of running headlong into it.
Yeah. Fair call. All right, now on to the other news. Let's talk about football. Football is the whole person. Absolutely appreciate that. But in terms of news of the week, Sam Kerr nominated for the Ballon d'Or, so that's great news for her. She's in amongst 20 players who've been nominated. It'll be whittled down, and I can't remember, Dale or Madge, I don't know if you know when it gets whittled down and to how many, but Christine Sinclair is in there, and gosh, she's a big favourite, isn't she, given that she's part of the gold medal winning squad at the Olympics. A number of other big players in there, as well as Ellen White from the UK. I noticed there are a lot of players from Spain in there. Did anyone else notice that?
Absolutely. I mean, you've got to think that Alexia Putellas has got to be in with a fairly good shout at least making the final shortlist and possibly taking it all. So the treble winners in Barcelona, and I'm sure we'll touch on that later, but we saw what they did to Arsenal this week as well. So very formidable.
And it's interesting, as you were saying, seeing kind of how few American players there were on the list as well. Obviously, we've had a lot of American players, go for award nominations in the past, not necessarily just the Ballon d'Or, but kind of the world best player in the world, the FIFA award recently. So to see so few American-based players in the contest is really interesting. And I mean, I'm sure that we'll discuss that, when it does get cut down to a smaller list, but no Megan Rapinoe, no Tobin Heath, no Carly Lloyd. It's pretty incredible to see kind of in such a short space of time, I think accelerated by COVID, but how quickly the focus has kind of moved to Europe for France Football, who put out this list. But yeah, I think that's encouraging for those players that are on the continent and in the UK, that they feel that they've got a better chance of winning a global award like this.
It freaks me out a little bit. I have to say that, Australia had been up as high as whatever number the ranking was at that point in time. Did we get up to fourth, or am I making that shit up? Maybe it was just a dream.
Fourth. Yeah.
Not a dream. Good to hear. But now with the explosion of even Italy, who we saw in 2019, taught Australia a little bit of a lesson. Then we see Spain. There's a number of countries that are really bringing their big games up and with great support as well. So yeah, I'm just a little bit scared, but I don't know. If no one else is scared, I'll keep it to myself.
No, I'm with you. I'm scared.
I think Sam Kerr is the
team did.
I think Sam Kerr is the only Asian player on the list as well. So, I mean, you think about kind of 10 years ago when you had that Japanese team, and even in 2015, the Japanese team, there's a number of Korean players as well that you kind of come to mind, and even like the Sun Wens of the past years, kind of 20 years ago. Like, there's only like Sam Kerr being the only AFC, but like the only AFC player on there is pretty bizarre considering how quickly that kind of change has happened. But then again, I mean, I think there was no Asian team past the quarterfinals of the last World Cup, so that kind of makes sense.
Yep.
I think it's just drives home the need for us to get more competition against those European teams that we've historically been lacking a bit. I know people were upset with the Germany and the Netherlands results, but it's that's the style of play that we need to test ourselves against. Let's see us go against Spain and see what happens.
Oh my God, shush!
Close control of the ball. It's really impressive, and we need to know to play against that.
Oh, well, here you go. Madge is asking for a game against Spain. Tony G, if you're listening to the podcast, see what you can do about that. I, for one, am not yet putting my hand up for that. Let's see how we go against Brazil initially. I've always thought personally that we are better up against the more physical, maybe, and I won't say less technical, those kind of teams. I think that's where our athleticism can really help us out. But with the teams that, like you say, are able to hold the ball so close to them, and I think, that can put us under significant amount of pressure. Moving on just quickly to talk about the A-League's referees have been announced, and in that group of referees, we have Kate Jakowitz she's in the list to referee either of the A-Leagues as well as VAR, and we've got Casey Rybelt in the same situation, so either of the A-Leagues and VAR, or maybe not VAR, I tell lies. We also have Sarah Ho is in that list, so congratulations to the referees. It's an awful lot of work that they all go through in the season and in the off season as well. And I think we have some of the best referees in the world for our domestic competition. I don't know your thoughts on that. I know that Bibiana is out there and she's a big presence in football, although she's now retired. But I think when you look at maybe the NWSL is a good example to see the comparison of refereeing, what your thoughts are on that one. Dale, do you have thoughts on refereeing?
You have to think that if we have a referee in our domestic women's and men's league who refereed a semi-final at the last Olympics, you kind of really can't be complaining. And it is interesting, as you say, that we're going to have Kate Jakowitz potentially on VAR as well, who, I think at the last World Cup, all of the VAR referees were men. And I think at the Olympics, all the VAR referees were men, because I'm almost certain that Chris Beath did VAR at the last Olympics. But it is interesting that now we're moving to kind of more gender equity in that space, which is really good because obviously, like, I don't like VAR across the board. I'm not a huge, I think that it still needs to be tweaked. But if we've got our best women referees kind of learning the technology and becoming better and more astute at that, then that will only serve us better on a world stage. And if we're going to have VAR at the AFC competitions, we'll almost certainly have it at the next World Cup. So we'll be able to kind of spread this information throughout Asia, which is really good for women referees going forward.
Yep. I think the other thing is that it gives the referees a little bit of an opportunity for longevity in a way that they don't otherwise have, because it is a very physical endeavour to be as fit as you need to be, whether or not it's that at that domestic level or at an international level as well. So, I mean, I sit on my bum all day doing work. Surely I could do VAR, apart from that bit about not knowing the nuances of the rules, but hey, don't listen to me. Hey, the next thing that we've got on our list of things to talk about, and I just want to throw this to you guys. I almost want to, pick a side each and have a debate, but what are your thoughts on banning headers? On the for side, we have Madge, who's going to say how it's no, not necessarily. Go for it, guys. Just talk about, what do you think? What do you think about this article, which has come out, and we'll provide the notes to everyone as well about banning headers?
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess my first response is at the end of the day, this is entertainment. I mean, it's people's jobs, and there's a whole industry around it. But the risk of dementia is a big sacrifice for what is just some entertainment for fans and in the game. But so I'm absolutely happy to go down this path. And I think in that article, it was Terry Butcher, the ex-former England captain, who was raising the issue of starting to phase heading out of the game, and how it might actually change the game, in that we have to bring the ball down to the feet and play more. And I think as fans, we are quite adaptable. Games have changed over their lifespan, and we do change. And at the end of the day, it's the competition that is what's important and what we enjoy. People will come up with new amazing tactics and ways to play the game within whatever rules are set out. And I think just the evidence piling up that it's getting really just quite overwhelming, that it's probably a risk that we shouldn't be putting players in the lineup anymore.
Is there a football player out there anywhere, and I think it's a no, who wears one of those soft helmets? Because in different sports, we don't have heading as part of the game, but you have massive concussion issues in rugby, whether or not, I would imagine, whether or not it's union or league, in addition to which you have AFL. These kind of things are quite prevalent, and there's data which comes out of multiple areas of these sports which suggest that knocks to the head, consistent knocks to the head can be, the data is there. So as you say, Madge, if it's for our entertainment, then surely we should change the rules. I'm a bit of a purist. I'd love to see football staying the same, but not to the detriment of any of the players out there.
I do fear what corners will turn into. It's just going to be nothing but short corners. But you know what? Again, it's what you're weighing up. So,
yeah.
As you say, I mean, like there's a lot of evidence out there regarding kind of CTE and especially kind of much higher contact sports than in football. My take is that I don't think heading should be introduced until kind of the middle of teenage years, if I'm really honest. I think would be better off developing children to play the sport kind of on the ground.
Foot skills. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's really good being able to.
At what age is it introduced now?
Well, I mean, I think you can head the ball at all times. I think in England they've just introduced a rule where you can't head the ball below the age of 12.
Yep.
I would probably raise that to 15 because, like, there's no stage in life at which the brain becomes less vulnerable to head injuries. Now, I'm obviously not a brain surgeon. Like, anybody that would speak to me would know that. But there is a lot of evidence around kind of the longer that you allow the kind of developing brain to develop without concussion, the better off you'll be. But, like, in terms of how it would change the game, we would be talking about a change that would be probably, in all honesty, probably greater than like the change of the offside rule and the change of the back pass rule. We're talking about like the complete devolution of the game into an on the ground game, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but it would be a completely different sport. I think that there are better ways to deal with it. I don't think that heading should be taken out of the game, but listening to like Terry Butcher is a really good example of the changes that we've kind of seen in this. In years gone by, obviously you'd be playing with either a heavy leather or like a heavy polyester ball, and now we're talking about balls that are specifically within a weight range that are engineered to like the nth degree, especially if you're talking about kind of professional players. Whereas before, there was a player who used to play for Newcastle United in England who died and was found after his death at kind of the age of 50 or 60 to have had CTE. But then again, as I said, those players were playing with stitched leather balls, and we're talking about engineered polyester and polyurethane balls. I think, as I said, that there are better ways to mitigate this than banning things, but we are relying on a data set that we don't quite have from the evolution of kind of these, as I said, these engineered balls in kind of the late 2000s. We don't have enough data to justify changing the rules because we simply don't have enough time difference between when that started and now. But if we were to mitigate anything, I think the developmental changes that you see in a child's brain around that age to mess with that from a footballing perspective, like it's not fair on that child. And that's why you see things like in rugby union, any head contact in rugby union is now a red card. They're changing the rules. They're trying to change the rules in rugby league to bring a fairly similar kind of ethos in. There was a blitz in the NRL around the middle of the season around any head contact was a sin bin or a send off. The AFL is so far behind this kind of thing, it's not even funny. In terms of both being able to sanction players during games and also suspensions with head trauma. Ironically, the leader in this is the NFL. And really combat sports, because you have players or athletes who are suspended after concussions. So I think if we go down that road in terms of managing the concussions of players after the fact, but also trying to alleviate the risk of concussion, then we'll kind of have a perfect synergy. There's a lot of gestures going on here for a podcast. So please go and watch us on Facebook. But yeah, as I said, if we can kind of combine those two, then we'll create a safer environment, and that will lead to players being able to play for longer and also being able to feed themselves at the age of 45. So that's always a positive.
I like how Dale says there's a lot of gestures. I'm just looking at myself. No, I'm joking.
Oh, that's okay.
I actually turn my own video off so I don't have to look at myself. But interesting what you say about the age of young players getting involved in this and the development of the brain, and how it's always going to be susceptible. We know that from traumatic brain injury in different circumstances as well. But when we look at the development of the skull, when we look at the development of the shoulder and neck muscles, when we look at the development of technique, when we look at the development of knowledge and intelligence about whether or not you should be heading different balls and whatnot, or the ability to move around, make better decisions, I think there's a lot there that maybe lends itself to say the later the better, but you don't want to put them, sometimes the earlier you start working on it, the more that you will learn and retain about the best ways of doing it. So maybe it's a very soft ball initially. I think what Madge was saying about I hate short corners. I don't think there's ever been a short corner that I like, but I wonder whether or not they could look at different options around heading and just say only for corners. Nowhere else on the pitch can you head the ball. Maybe, I'm not suggesting, maybe FIFA should call me up and ask me my thoughts on the rule. I'm not too sure. But
I mean, the article did touch on the dangers of the contest, of, those big long balls and the contest in the air, and how that can cause other injuries as well. So maybe it's like hockey. Hockey's got a lifting rule, doesn't it? So you can't lift the ball.
You can't. Exactly like right.
Yeah. So or maybe around greater protection when players are challenging for aerial balls and those sorts of issues. Yeah.
Yep. I have also played hockey. It is a very solid ball, and you have a stick. So there's a couple of different options there for some significant injuries. But anyway, the good conversation, I think, and I think it's good that people are bringing it up and it's dealt with respectfully and with data. And I think data is going to be the key. Hey, let's jump on to some signings for the A-League Women's, or the Dub, as we still like to call it. Either one of you want to pick this one up? I think the biggest signing that we've seen is for Wellington.
Yeah, we've just had the two coaches announced.
Yeah, coaches. I don't posit to be an expert, but staff is a good start, especially when you're trying to run a sporting organisation. And I think it's also a really good move to have the two coaches who are already involved with the football ferns and the young football ferns involved. If they're going to make this a pathway for young New Zealand talent, then I think maintaining that kind of continuity through the grades, for want of a word, is really important. And also it allows those coaches to coach in a league environment as opposed to only a tournament environment, which I imagine where they'd probably be coaching most of the time at the moment.
And the other thing is that they are women coaches, and
yes.
Best person for the role, don't get me wrong, but I love to see some diversity in the roles, particularly seeing more women who are supported in a good environment to go off and learn more. And the W League, or the Dub, is, I don't know how many times I'm going to get that wrong, but I think it's a great environment, not only for the players, but for the coaches as well, to develop their tactics, their skills, their planning pathways for all of the players too. So very good to see Gemma Lewis announced as the head coach and Natalie Lawrence as the assistant coach. Let's go around the world a little bit. We've had some Women's Champion League action. Dale, can I throw this one to you and you can tell us all about it, or you can share with Madge?
Yeah, give me 1 second. Sorry, I should have probably had this up ready to go. I did really enjoy. If you do not have access to, I don't even know who has the UWCL rights in Australia.
DAZN.
That's right. That's right.
It's the free YouTube.
That's right. If you go onto that free YouTube site, A, fantastic coverage. B, also they have streams in multiple languages, which I really enjoy. Sorry, I'm just trying to bring this up.
You're going to be deliberately watching it in, I don't know, Spanish for fun.
I was watching I was really interested. So I think the Kharkiv Madrid game had a call in Spanish and a call in Ukrainian. And I was like, oh, this is right up my alley. I was a huge fan of this. Sorry, my apologies. Should have probably been quicker on the draw here. As we mentioned, there were a bunch of UWCL games in the last week, all of which were played kind of Wednesday, Thursday last week. Hoffenheim beat Courier 5-0 at home. BK Häcken lost to Lyon 3-0 at home. Now, Dylan Holmes and Ellie Carpenter did feature in that match. I believe Ellie Carpenter gave possibly the best interview that you will ever see. If you can find that, I think it's on the OL Feminine Twitter account. I just want to say, kind of aside from the football, I'm absolutely stoked at how well Ellie is taking to Lyon because I did French all the way through high school and at uni, and I never lived in France. I did some stay over there with school, but I never lived in France. She's been over there for like 18 months now, and her French, for somebody who didn't study it as a kid, really impressed. And I'm really glad that she's giving it a go. There's a very famous interview of David Beckham after 7 years at Real Madrid, I think, and he managed about 12 words of Spanish. So for her to be going so well in her kind of studies is really, really impressive. As I said, she got on the pitch in Sweden. Barcelona absolutely destroyed Arsenal 4-1. And as you mentioned, Shez, you can kind of see why they are dominating the Ballon d'Or. 35 shots in a 90-minute game is fairly impressive against an Arsenal team that we know has in terms of the WSL, has a pretty strong midfield.
Well, Arsenal's on top of the WSL as well.
They are. You make a good point. But as I said, they just got absolutely taken apart in that game.
Yeah, they made them look absolutely pedestrian. They could not deal with the press and the pressure at all.
Yeah. It reminded me of the Chelsea game last week. I think they played Birmingham, and that Barcelona made Arsenal look like Birmingham in that game. The press was just as soon as they lost the ball in midfield or in defense, there were 6 players around the ball, and they were just well, can't really do much here.
Not only were they holding it, but they were also counter-attacking. So they were just all over everything. And was really impressed with Oshuala as well. She had a great goal, and I think
I've always been
as well.
Yeah, always been a big fan of Oshuala. I think that she's one of the most underrated players in Europe in terms of finishing strikers. I think also just because she went away to China for a little bit, and I don't think that we kind of saw the best of her for that last few years with the Nigerian national team. But it's just watching her play in that front three, and when you bring Leek Martins off the bench, it's a fairly terrifying attack. And they've got Anna Kurnagosevic, who is every kit person's nightmare playing at left back. You were saying, sorry?
Say Arsenal did look a little bit better at the end. So I think when they brought on Heath and also bringing on Caitlin as well, I think they definitely had a few more chances at the end. But yeah, I don't know how much of that was Barcelona taking the foot off the pedal, perhaps as well.
I was going to say, yes. Caitlin Ford came on for a run. Steph Catley started. Lydia Williams, an unused sub off the bench. Benfica versus Bayern. Bayern's away jersey is lovely. And if you like the sartorial element of football, please go and look it up. That was a 0-0 draw. No Australians in that game, unfortunately. As I mentioned, Kharkiv 0, Real Madrid 1. Big fan of Kharkiv because they're sponsored by a building company, and also their logo is just a building. Servette 0, Juventus 3. Pep Montemuro with a win in the Champions League. Tess Tamplin came on for this one. I love that Tess Tamplin plays for the Swedish champions. Mainly because it's kind of really like niche. I just like that she's like, oh, I'm going to go overseas. I might play. It was like when Vesna Milivojevic went and played in Serbia, and I was like, oh, that's cool. Maybe she'll get in the Champions League. And now Tess Tamplin is playing in Switzerland and playing in the Champions League. I'm a big fan. Breidablik 0, Paris Saint-Germain 2 in Iceland. Did enjoy. My highlight from this one was finding out that the billboards at Breidablik's home ground are effectively like Bunnings and a local butcher, which is I'm a huge fan of in like an international sporting competition. Come down to this real estate agent if you live in Paris. We're advertising it on the Champions League stream. And the last game, and I think undoubtedly the game of the round, was Chelsea 3, Wolfsburg 3. Sam Kerr opening the scoring, I believe. Sam Kerr opening the scoring?
She did.
Yeah, it was beautiful goal.
Beautiful and goal. Then, yeah.
Was that the little chip?
Yeah.
He did, yeah. And then Chelsea kind of dropped the ball for about 45 minutes. Beth England with, Tavia Vassmuth with 2 goals, Jill Hord with 1, Beth England with 1, and Pernilla Harder with a banger to finish 3-3. I think you'll be hard pressed to beat that for game of the group stage. Honestly, that game had everything. And if I remember correctly, Ben Gilby was there to take it all in for us, which is great stuff. Lucky fella.
You might be right. And we've got more games coming up on Thursday morning. So very early, starting at 3:45 for a couple of those matches, a little bit more reasonable at 6 a.m. if any. I'm talking East Coast times, or Australian Eastern Daylight times rather than up there in Brisbane. So keep your eyes peeled for Thursday.
Big one to watch for this one is Juventus Chelsea at Juventus's home ground. That's a 6 o'clock kickoff on a Thursday. So no excuse to miss that one. I think that'll be a really, really good game. And they're all for free on the DAZN YouTube page.
And Arsenal will absolutely want to get that one against Hoffenheim. So they will need to.
I think Hoffenheim are going to be a little bit better than I think everyone thought they were. Because Köln weren't great, but Arsenal, I think they're not going to want to think that Hoffenheim are a light touch. Also, what a goal. Hoffenheim's opener. Just like, wow, hurt me. It was amazing.
I feel like I didn't see that one, and I feel like we need to.
We'll put it in the show notes.
All of that. Yep. So Dale, that's Dale's homework. Let's talk about homework. Last week we gave Madge some homework to come back and talk to us about NPLW in the big old place of Queensland, to give us an update on how things are going there, because we don't give it a lot of coverage. We are working on it. Apologies to any of our listeners and people who maybe don't listen who won't get this apology. But anyway, you know what I mean, that we haven't covered Queensland enough. We're looking to rectify that. Madge, take it away.
Well, you can always sign up to NPL TV. So it's got the New South Wales, but it's also got the Queensland games. So you can jump in, and we are into finals now. So this season did wrap up on the weekend. Queensland Lions went undefeated, so 15 wins for the season and only 1 draw. So they topped the season off with a win against second place Capalaba on Saturday night, but the Lions came out 3-0 winners. Some disappointing news from that game. Larissa Crummer, playing for Capalaba, did go up injured. It didn't look too bad, but she has had some niggly injuries throughout the season for Capalaba. So hopefully she will be back up and running for the finals and of course for the A-League women's season. So with that loss, Capalaba actually let go of that second place. Oh, where's the table gone? And Gold Coast United leapfrogged them. So they were playing, I think, Eastern Suburbs. And so Gold Coast is second. So Gold Coast and Capalaba will be playing a semi-final this Sunday down at the Gold Coast. So we will be having a day trip. So that's always nice. And then the Lions will be taking on Eastern Suburbs in the other semi-final, and then the final will be next week. So There was a really good goal in the Lions game. Amy Gunston, who I think could be a shout to possibly get, I'd like to see her get an A-League Women call-up this season. A really good lanky young winger playing for Lions, who's been banging in the goals this season. And of course, also from the Gold Coast, Jessie Rashford, who had been playing for Canberra the last couple of seasons, has signed for A-League.
Great pickup for you guys.
For Brisbane as well, yeah. Well, look, like I said last week, we definitely need the defenders. So I was very happy with that signing.
I did see that. Thank you for that update. Hopefully my audio is working well. I just logged into Facebook to see if we had any comments coming through that we could pick up and respond to. And through logging into Facebook on my phone, it said, oh, you only want to listen to your AirPods on your phone. So then I couldn't really hear properly. Let's jump around the world quickly. And I'm sure that we will get Steffen jumping in soon to talk about his Nordic wrap that always gets a big thank you from people who listen to us. In the Women's Empowerment League in Japan, Sendai ladies were 1-1 draws, they both took a point each against Chiba, which is where we see Alex Chidiac. She did come on and play some game time there. I can't remember if it was maybe about 20 odd minutes or something. So that's actually quite a good result for Chiba because Sendai are third on the table with Chiba in 10th position. So good result for them. In the FAWSL, I don't know if anyone wants to jump in and talk about this. I'll rush through it quickly. Dale saying yes. All right, I'll throw to Dale and you can give us a nice little quick overview on how that's going.
Alrighty. Man United 2, Man City 2, Alana Kennedy, an unused substitute. Haley Rasso didn't make the team sheet. Georgia Stanway earned herself probably a 3-week suspension with just assault. It
was shocking.
There's a shocking
pretty
challenge.
Pedestrian, yep.
Georgia Stanway has a bit of a history for this kind of thing. If you go on YouTube and look up Georgia Stanway foul, there is a minute compilation of her kicking Arsenal players set to
goodness.
the Wii music theme.
Written it down on my show notes.
That was a great game, though. United probably should have taken 3 points. They scored 2 goals kind of midway through the second half, and then Ellen White scored an equaliser for City. Chelsea 2, Leicester 0. No goal for Sam Kerr this week, but she did come off the bench after their exertions in Europe. I thought Leicester were pretty unlucky not to get anything out of this. They had 28% possession for the whole game. Unfortunately, they have 0 points for this season so far. Chelsea are now second on the league on goal difference. Brighton 2, Tottenham Hotspur 1. Speaking of contentious red cards for headers, Rachel Williams was sent off in the 78th minute for Spurs after what appeared to me just to be a clash of heads in an aerial contest, but it was viewed as more than that by the referee. She received a second yellow. No run out for Kaya Simon. She was an unused substitute. Rhea Percival did get a full 90 minutes, though. Speaking of players that didn't get a run, no Emily Gilnick for Aston Villa in their 3-0 defeat away to Reading. Former A-League Women fan favourite Natasha Dowie did score an absolute banger for Reading, though. So, again, if you do find the video of that, please enjoy. When it did come to players who did get on the pitch, Mackenzie Arnold and Tamiki Allop both got 90 minutes for West Ham in their 1-1 draw at Victoria Road against Birmingham City. That was Birmingham's first point of the season. So good for them. And speaking of teams that got no points, it's Everton who went down 3-0 away at Meadow Park to Arsenal. Caitlin Ford was subbed on for our favourite Viv Miedemar at the 76th minute. Lydia Williams and Steph Catley, both unused subs. Again, amazing goal from Frida Marnum. Look that one up if you can find it. And that is the WSL wrap. Should just probably give a point shout out. Arsenal on top of the league, closely followed by Chelsea, Spurs and Man United. Bottom of the league is brought up by Reading on 3 points, Birmingham City on 1 and Leicester City on 0 points.
Thank you very much for that, Dale. That was a nice little wrap. I'll just, we've had Steffen join the podcast, but before we hand over to Steffen, just talk about the Scottish WPL where we saw Celtic defeat Hamilton 6-0 with Jacinta Galabadaracici scoring in the 4th minute. Good for her to get a whole game. I don't know if she's worked her way back into the squad. I think she's been having some time on the bench and time not on the team sheet, but great to see her out there and great to see her score. Hart went down 0-2 against Glasgow City, where we see Aoife Colville. Normally Aoife gives us a couple of goals every round that we see, but we didn't see any goals from her this time around. In Europe, particularly in France, it was a break for everyone apart from PSG versus Guingamp, where we used to have Laura Brock was playing for them. PSG had a 6-0 victory there. In Italy, we saw Lazio with Ella Mastrantonio have a really big game against Pomigliano, where we have Ivy Luick. It was a 2-1 victory to Pomigliano, so good luck to them for the rest of their season as they're going. In the Netherlands, it was a 4-1 victory to PSV over Heerenveen. I don't know, close enough. Amy Harrison in there getting a bit of game time. And now that gives us the opportunity to throw directly to, we can see if you'll catch it. Steffen, over to you for your Norway wrap.
Hi, everyone. Hope you're all well. I'll start off with Norway and Sweden. Both are in their 4th last rounds on the weekend. Both played their 4th last rounds. Firstly, in Norway, 3rd place, Lillestrøm, LSK Kvinner, where Karli Rosbakken plays. They had an incredible game on the weekend, a really enjoyable game to watch. I hope some other Aussies are watching it as well, not just myself and 1 or 2 others. LSK were down 3-0 just after half-time in that game against 7th placed Valsnes. And as has been their wont lately, they had a remarkable pick-up in the second half, really turned things around, and they ended up winning that game 4-3 very late in the piece. So 4 second-half goals. It was pretty stunning to watch. The good news is, too, from a local press article over in Lillestrøm, is that Karli and 2 other of her fellow injured players will be coming back into the team sheet for their game next weekend against their away game against Stabæk. So that's really good to hear. So she'll hopefully have some action in the last 3 games. So we'll see what happens. They also have a round 12 catch-up game midweek this week against Rosenborg. Down at Klepp, where Nicola Orgill plays, they're bottom of the ladder, unfortunately, at the moment. They lost 2-1 at home against 6th place Kolbotn. And Nicola's still not on the card, although she's still posting shots of her being at the gym and that sort of thing. So, again, I'm hoping that she's not far away. They play 2nd placed Rosenborg next weekend. In Sweden, where there's lots of Aussies, 6 of them, some of our Aussies got some welcome match time because of the Champions League fixtures during the week. So, firstly, ladder leaders Rosengard played against 8th placed Linköpings. They won 2-1 at home and they retained their top spot. And Charlie Grant started that game, and as did Tegan Micah, and Charlie played 88 minutes. So that's really good match time for her. Really pleasing to see. Coming up this week, they have a cancelled cup game to the 2nd tier Borgby midweek, and next weekend they are away to 10th place Pattaya. 2nd placed BK Häcken, who we heard before from you, had also played in the Champions League. So on the weekend, though, they in the Damallsvenskan, Dylan Holmes had a rare start and played the first half of their game against Vitsjo, which is where Claire Polkinghorn plays, and that was a home game. Polks played the whole game. It was a 0-0 draw. But the result sees BK Häcken stay 2nd and Vitsjo stay in 6th place. And I think you may have mentioned there's also a Champions League game midweek against Bayern Munich on the 15th, so big game coming up. They then back up next weekend for an away game against 11th placed AIK. Over at Hammarby, where Elise Kellen-Knight is, she's still recovering from surgery, but her team had a good, strong 4-1 win at home against the 11th placed AIK, and it sees Hammarby remain 5th on the ladder. And next up, they have an away trip to Polks to Vitsjo. So we'll see how that goes. And finally, Winona Heatley is playing with. I found it this week. You pronounce it as Vekor. So and I'll talk a bit about it, a bit more about that a little bit later. But they had their first win of the season, so tremendous to see. And I think I've been talking about how they've been almost there in a number of games against much higher placed teams, and this time they got it all together and recorded their first win, a 1-0 win at home against 10th place Pattaya. So that must have been very exciting for the team. Winnie unfortunately didn't get used off the bench. Next week they're up against 8th place Lynn Kirpings. And
just a question to try and clarify: are we supposed to pronounce the team names properly? Because I've never taken that as something that we were supposed to do. I think Dale takes it. Maybe Dale and Eric take it a little bit more religiously than me, but I just whack out whatever comes out my mouth.
I feel that there should be a happy medium in between sounding like we know what we're talking about and sounding like we live there. And I like to float somewhere in the middle.
All right, take it away. Sorry for interrupting you there, Steffen.
I have to agree. I was horrified when I found out how I was horribly mangling Vekor's name up till now. So I'm very pleased to hear
everyone in Australia is saying exactly the way that, because everyone listens to Steffen's Nordic rap. Now that's just the way that they're saying.
If only I was Nordic. Anyway, over in Denmark, Fortuna Hearing, which has got the 4 Aussies playing there, India Page Riley, Claire Wheeler, Angie Beard and Alex Swin, had a 3-0 home win against Jenna McCormick's AGF. So lots of Aussies there. So that would have been a really nice get-together, I imagine, after the game for them all. Indy and Angie both started for Fortuna, and Jenna played a full game for AGF. But a good 3-0 home win. Claire Wheeler, who didn't get any game time last game, came on at the hour mark for Fortuna. So perhaps she's coming back from a niggle, but good to see she's back on. And Alex Wynn was an unused sub for this game. And next week they play 5th place North Zealand. And AGF, their game next week for Jenna is against 4th place Thai Thisted. And that's it from me.
Very good. Thank you for that. Sorry, I'm just writing down my Queens of the Week because they're coming hot off the press, but more like I just remembered them. So I'm writing them down. Let's jump into Queens of the Week. It wouldn't be a week without Eric if he hasn't left us some homework. So I'll just quickly go through his Queens of the Week. He's left us 3. So Leicester City goalkeeper Kirstie Levell, who saved a Sam Kerr header with her face. Very nice. Always love the photography of that kind of thing as well. It's called The Vault. Apparently there's some shots in there that will never see the light of day, and that's probably one we don't need to see. Man U forward Leah Galton, because her thigh is still intact after that foul from Georgia Stanway, which you guys have already talked about. And then Aston Villa defender Maz Pacheco for all the nutmegs, which you will see in the link, which Eric has lovingly put into the show notes already for us. Madge, how about your show notes? How about your Queen of the Week?
Yeah, I'm going to keep going with the hard to pronounce names. I mean, it's not necessarily a first, but there was a Ukrainian refereeing team that were the first time there's been an all-female refereeing team for the England senior men's national team in their World Cup qualifier against Andorra, which was a 5-0 win to England. So I'm going to give the names a go. Katarina Monzul was the centre ref, and then Myona Struletska and Svetlana Bushko.
Very nice. I think Dale would love that lot of Queens of the Week from you. Dale, your Queens of the Week or Queen? You can have just one, apparently.
Mine this week is Natasha Dowie. First goal back in England for a long time, and boy, did she love it. And we love to see her thriving and surviving. That is the most important thing. Good result for Reading as well. We know that Emma Checker is training there, so obviously it's that level of quality that she's brought to the team that has brought these 3 points. Which I think it's really important to acknowledge that another Australian is just helping out where they can. But my Queen of the Week is Tats Dowie, because, we love a bit of Tats Dowie.
I'm loving that Emma Checker is getting some time over there working together with the team, but part of me worries that she's not going to come home for the A-League.
I really
women's.
wish that she signed a loan contract, if I'm honest. Even
That's
if
true.
it was just for like 2 or 3 months, just to tide her over until she comes back for the dub. Just because because she's been playing in Iceland and obviously she's at peak fitness, keep playing into the W League, and then I just think that would serve her really well, especially kind of going into the Asian Cup as well.
We'll have to work out who her agent is. It brings back to my
I'll make
mind
a phone call.
We've forgotten to talk about one of the signings of the week is that Emily Van Egmond is actually heading out to or back to Orlando Pride to play maybe a game or two there. Their season ends the 31st of October. Obviously, after that, they'll have their postseason matches. But yeah, that was delayed because of visa challenges, COVID challenges and whatnot. But good to see Van Eggs get a professional contract under her belt. How about you, Steffen? Do you have one or two Queens of the Week before I throw my amazing ones in there too?
I do. I've got one. But before I do, Canberra Olympic, more amazing signings this week. Two further signings, most of them from Belconnen United. So this week they've also signed up Beyond 90s Team of the Year wingback for 2 years running, Vanessa Ryan from Belconnen, and also the experienced Nicole Jalocka. So that's 6 big off-season signings. So making some big moves down there. But my Queen of the Week is, again, I mentioned her before, but it's Winona Heatley. She produced an amazing day in the life video of what her day looks like playing for Vecco in Sweden. And it's very quiet and very understated, but also very atmospheric. It starts with her waking up quite early in the morning around 6 a.m. and you hear the bell of the train coming past, and you look outside and there's all the fog and everything, and she has a very sparse breakfast and then gets on a pushy and gets to the ground. You can see what the amazing facilities they've got there, both the outdoor and the indoor and the gym and everything, and how well they're set up there. But you also get a sense of the gulf and the distance between where she's come from and her being over there. And she lives in an apartment by herself. And so it's you realize how courageous a move this often is, in a way, to grow in this way. So getting terrific life experience, probably loving every minute of it, but there's also an awful lot to overcome, I think, in having the courage to get up and make that sort of move, being a completely foreign environment. But yeah, quite atmospheric. So if I can encourage everyone to follow Winona Heatley on Instagram and have a look, it's a really good watch. And you too will find out how to pronounce Vecco like I did.
Oh, very good. Thanks very much for Steffen. It sounds like a lovely idea. My Queens of the Week to take us out towards the end of the show. One of them was that we saw Jessica Wick, I think you would pronounce it, the old Samuelson, who played for Melbourne Victory so many seasons ago as a very, very youngster. She's just had a baby shower thrown for her with her team. So I thought that was beautiful to see the players and the whole person. So I love that. And then the other part was over the weekend, I was mowing our grass on our ride-on mower, listening to the Far Post pod, catching up on a couple of episodes. And another Queen of the Week goes out to Angela Christian Wilkes, who I think did a great idea of calling, instead of saying the A-League women and the A-League men, can't we just call them Mal and Wow or Wol? I thought they were terrific ideas. So shout out to Angela Christian Wilkes, part of the Beyond 90 team, also part of the Far Post pod. So good on you. Very happy to hear that.
It's such an Angela idea,
sounds?
Just quietly.
Yeah, and they just sound like cat sounds as well. Like it's very on brand.
And knowing her, exactly right.
named after Melon, perhaps. I'm not too sure.
Melon.
Yeah. But shout out to the pod on the left of us or the right of us. So, I love listening to their podcast as well, and I hope they love listening to ours too. But from me, on behalf of the team here at Beyond 90, including our co-host today with Steffen, Dale, and Madge, shout out to Raleigh, who's not been with us for the moment, and also to Eric. It's been great. I love talking football. Keep listening to us. If you love us, give us a shout out and share it with your mates. If there's something that you don't like, give us some feedback and we can talk to that as well. Thank you very much, everyone. Goodbye.